Stop fighting each other. Stop fighting each other. You must understand who the enemy is. You must understand what we have to do to stop what's coming. You must begin to learn about real economics and real money, and you have to understand that no matter what they do to the price of oil, it will never result in inflation.
All right, now, welcome everybody to today's episode of Trevor Sharing the Truth with the World. And today, we're gonna teach everybody in the world how we can end every single political issue on planet Earth. It doesn't matter who you are, what race you are, what color skin you is, what creed you are, what religion you don't belong to, what religion you hate, doesn't matter. We end every single problem, and we can all start leaving each other alone after we solve this issue right here. So, what we're going to discuss today is the truth about money. You think you know things about money, but you don't know anything in the world about money. I don't care who you are. There isn't one person in the world who can match my knowledge on the subject of money, because every single person is almost wholly ignorant of everything I am about to discuss. It doesn't matter what they believe. Even if they believe that they understand this information, in most cases they are too cowardly to actually tell anybody what it means. So that's why I'm here. I don't care if you have an MBA. I don't care if you're the vice president of Chase International Bank. I don't care who you are, except for maybe God himself, because God is the only person who's going to match my knowledge on this subject. So, and the reason for this is because every single one of you is a pauper. I don't care if you have $50 million in assets, $5 billion in assets, $10 in assets, or if you're a fucking bum living on the street. All of you have one thing in common, and that is that you have been pauperized by your ignorance on the subject of both contract and money. So we're going to make that go bye-bye starting today using the work of the giants of the past. If you don't know this information that I'm about to share, well, like I said, you can't solve any political issues if you don't know this. So keep running your mouth about how you're an activist. If you aren't doing activism for ending this right here that I'm about to discuss, fuck off. You're a coward, and you're either a coward or you're ignorant. I don't care which one. Probably both.
Yeah, you front on us this year, consider yourself blown out of here. Yeah, by my Robin Hood theory, squeeze the juice out of all the suckers with power and pour some back out, so as to water the flowers. This world is ours. That's why the demons are leery. It's our inheritance. This is my Robin Hood theory.
And I'm the only one in this country who's got the guts to tell it to you, because anyone else who's ever tried has been murdered. Murdered by these creeps. And they all belong to secret societies.
You can follow every single one of your heroes back to a lodge of some kind. Doesn't matter who it is. All of them belong to secret societies who front the money power. These secret societies that they belong to, we have no need to name them here. You can find that information on your own if you really want to. They use you like soldiers for pay to get what they want from you and never tell you what they're really doing. This is the scam that they're hiding. You're about to hear it.
It is not a Jewish plot. It is not a Catholic plot. It is not a plot by the blacks or the Poles or the Protestants or anyone else. These men belong to secret societies. And this problem is as old as man. You see, the first international bankers ever in this world were known as the Knights Templar.
I'm the president of the shadow government, the grand governor of the Federal Reserve, public enemy of the society, the one you cannot see, the 33 degree.
As I just mentioned, you can do your own research into secret societies and gain a fairly great understanding of the subject. That's not what we're here for tonight. But what I do have to tell you about them is that if you research into secret societies, you can easily find that they are present in all of recorded history, in all of the world's nations, through all of their history of every nation you can name in existence. You can also find secret societies active at work in the downfall of every great power that the world has ever known. Doesn't matter what race or ethnicity started it. They have all been taken down by secret societies, because the great work is to corrupt all men, not just certain men. It's all men. They are known as the Brotherhood of the Snake. If you can escape the guising lens that has been sold to you by the history that has been written for you by these secret societies. Whether you accept it or not, secret societies control the world today. They are and were and always have been the money power. I'm going to explain in full in this video here how they have enslaved the world through fiat money that you have utterly no clue is worthless.
Inflation is not caused by raising or lowering the price of anything, folks. Inflation is caused by flooding the economy with money. Worthless paper. Worthless paper. Making more money available in the form of loans, in the form of credit, in the form of cash, by running the printing presses, and that is what causes inflation. What has happened, dear listeners? Well, in the next 50 or so minutes, you're going to find out. And when you find out, I want each and every one of you to hang your heads in shame. For we have not been invaded by the evil empire or some foreign army. No one has breached our shores. We have been destroyed from within, mostly by our own apathy, ignorance, and abdication of responsibility. And just as the Roman Empire once fell for the same reasons, we are in the process of falling into the abyss. And Americans, I can tell you right now, if they do not wake up and turn the tide, they will be relegated to slavery as indentured servants to the world bankers who will foreclose on the debt. A debt that at this moment we could not repay by any means whatsoever.
So, you'd be hard-pressed to find an American who doesn't claim that America is the back-to-back world champs. We're the back-to-back world champs, guys! Oh, wait. Never mind. No, we aren't. We got our asses handed to us. That's a total fucking lie. Anybody who says that America is the back-to-back world champs has utterly no conception of history in any meaningful way whatsoever. We lost both world wars resoundingly, and each war was essentially fought to ensure our enslavement to the money power that was put in place by the bankers who created the conflicts that created the phony wars in the first place. These wars served many purposes, but the main purpose was to create a monopoly control on world finance through the creation of the UN. The United Nations is nothing more than a front to install the IMF, aka the International Monetary Fund. The UN, aka the United Nations, in secret controls every bank on Earth through treaties with the UN that the IMF controls the central bank of every nation who has agreed to fall under the power of the United Nations. So, through the world wars, the United Nations was created, and through this, they created the International Monetary Fund, which then created the central bank of every single nation on the planet who has joined the United Nations, which at this point is all but 3 nations. I won't name them for you. So basically, the IMF is just a subsidiary arm of the United Nations. The United Nations itself is run by secret society members of every nation on Earth.
Program tonight is, how did we get to this point in history where the greatest nation in the history of the world is on the brink of total and final economic collapse? You're going to be amazed at what you're going to learn this hour. Many of you are going to be shocked, surprised, and some of you are going to be, in fact, I think the great majority of you are going to be ashamed of yourselves. Why is it that our schools teach our children nothing about money, economics? Why is it that we know as a people literally nothing about the monetary system and the economic system that our country operates under? How is it that most Americans believe that a private corporation known as the Federal Reserve Bank is an agency of the United States government when it is not? How is it that we write checks to the Internal Revenue Service believing that we are paying taxes and we are not? Why is it that in the nation with the most opportunity, the greatest affluence that the world has ever known, what used to be, is not now, but what used to be the best educational system on the face of this earth, with a constitution that guarantees each individual equality and freedom,
with the affirmation of man, I work my way backwards using cynicism.
Well, even for the best of us, this next part will be a little bit boring, but to really learn what we need to learn here that I'm sharing tonight, we need to examine the Constitution. So click a link in the that I put in the comments for a link to the Constitution so you can follow along and read the Constitution along with the broadcast, so you can see exactly what is said in the Constitution for yourself. None of this was taught in our United Nations controlled schools, which I happen to have another full series on, the United Nations control of our public schooling system, which is the place that you should have learned all this, but you never did, because the United Nations, aka the IMF, controls the public school system.
The United States Constitution, the supreme law of this land. In it, we can get at the very root of the problem that confronts us today, for in examining this document, we find that we are not conforming to the law. In Article 1, Section 8, it says, "The Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. But all duties, imposts, and excises shall be uniform throughout the United States. The Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. But all duties, imposts, and excises shall be uniform throughout the United States." Paragraph 2. To borrow money on the credit of the United States. Paragraph 3. To regulate commerce with foreign nations and among the several states and with the Indian tribes. Paragraph 5. To coin money. Notice it says to coin money. Regulate the value thereof and of foreign coin, and fix the standard of weights and measures. Now, the next time that we find any mention of money or coinage whatsoever is in Article 1, Section 9. The migration, this is in paragraph 1, the migration or importation of such persons as any of the states now existing shall think proper to admit shall not be prohibited by the Congress prior to the year 1808, but a tax or duty may be imposed on such importation not exceeding $10 for each person. And then it goes all the way down to paragraph 4. No capitation or other direct tax shall be laid unless in proportion to the census or enumeration herein before directed to be taken. In paragraph 5, no tax or duty shall be laid on articles exported from any state. So, then we go to paragraph 6. No preference shall be given by any regulation or commerce or revenue to the ports of one state over those of another, nor shall vessels bound to or from one state be obliged to enter, clear, or pay duties in another. Paragraph 7. No money shall be drawn from the Treasury, but in consequence of appropriations made by law, and a regular statement and account of the receipts and expenditures of all public money shall be published from time to time.
The time monitor. The space measurer.
Well, this is a question that I'm sure everyone here that's listening will answer yes to. So, you use gold and silver coin as money, correct? You use gold and silver coin as your money on a day-to-day basis. Is that correct, or is that not? Oh, yeah. Well, I thought not. So, what that means is that your Congress has committed treason. They committed treason in 1913, and every sitting member of our Congress since 1913 has committed treason since the day the Federal Reserve was put into existence by our treasonous Congress. Anybody who has served in Congress after this treasonous Congress put this in place is also complicit in this treason. The quote-unquote swamp is literally every joker, actor, criminal scumbag letting this happen that sits in Congress. But, according to Congress actually, what I just said is basically hate speech, so I don't know, I guess.
The next mention we have of money in any form, taxes, duties, coinage, money, whatever you want to call it, is in Section 10. And in Section 10, it makes an incredible statement. Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution of the United States of America, in paragraph 1, says, no state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque and reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, and catch this, folks, I'm reading directly from the Constitution, quote, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts, unquote. And to continue, pass any bill of attainder, ex post facto law, or law impairing the obligation of contracts, or grant any title of nobility. So remember, in Article 1, Section 8, paragraph 5, it says the Congress shall have the power to coin money, regulate the value thereof, and of foreign coin, and fix the standard of weights and measures. And folks, in Article 1, Section 10, it says that no state shall make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts.
The guard's always been militant and ready for war. We're gonna snatch up the ringleaders, send them home in their drawers. But first, where's the safe at? Let's make them show us and tell them hurry up, give up the loot that they owe us. We bringing it back around the way to our peeps, cause times are way too deep. We know the code of the streets, meet your defeat. This is my Robin Hood theory.
So if I were to explain my life in a nutshell, pretty much what I've been doing is I've been trying like hell to explain to people for over a decade that they own absolutely nothing at all. This is because everything you have ever bought was paid for with literal monopoly money. Monopoly is not a game. It's actually how our economy is run, and it's how you buy everything you think you own. So basically how this works is that to own something, you have to satisfy the legal requirement of conditions of payment to actually own the item that you're trying to purchase. To legally meet the conditions of payment that you need to meet to actually own something, you have to use real money to pay for it.
I would like every single one of you to take a dollar bill out of your pocket right at this moment, and I want each and every one of you to take a quarter or a nickel or a dime, I don't care what it is, take it out of your pocket. In fact, take them all out of your pocket. Take one of each denomination of coin out of your pocket and lay it on the table before you, or on the arm of your chair, or just hold them in your hand. Now, if you have indeed done that, you are looking at several coins, and you're looking at a dollar bill, but that's okay. It could be a $10 bill, a $5, a $20. It doesn't matter what it is. What you're looking at is evidence of the greatest heist in the history of the world. The robbery of an entire nation of all of its assets, natural resources, and people. And I will explain that to you. If you take each one of those coins, you will find that none of them are silver or gold. None of them, not one. You may have a quarter that looks like it is silver, or a dime that looks like it is silver, but it is what is called copper-clad. In other words, it's a copper coin, a bus token, if you will. That's exactly what it is, a bus token, a piece of copper, to which they have applied a very, very thin coating of silver alloy. It's not even pure silver. It's not pure silver so that it doesn't wear off too quickly. Silver alloy to make it look like it is silver, to fool you. Because most people, if they have a coin that looks like silver, to them, it is. To me, it's nothing but a bus token, folks, and that's what it should be to you, too.
You were taking over radio and whack media, cause systematically they're getting greedier and greedier. Conquering turfs with my ill organization, taking out the man while we scan the information. You wanna rhyme, you best to wait, son. You can't even come near if you ain't got our shit.
Okay, you see this stuff right here? This is not money. This is not money. So, I'm going to explain this to you. This right here, all of these bills, these are all fiat. They're worthless. They have no value to anybody at all. See, it says the word Federal Reserve Note. It says Federal Reserve Note right on it. The word note, if you had any background in education whatsoever on finance, money, or anything at all to do with real world value, well, you would know that a note is an instrument of debt. You can look this up in Black's Law Dictionary. The word note means instrument of debt. This right here, since it is a note that was issued by the Federal Reserve, well, see, this is a debt you owe to the issuer of the note. The issuer of the note is the Federal Reserve, as indicated right on the note that you're looking at that says note on it, with the words Federal Reserve right before it. So, to make a long story short, anything you buy with this debt note is the legal property of the issuer of this debt note. So when you use this debt note, say, to purchase a home, you don't legally own that home, and you never can own that home, because you purchased it with a debt note to a corporation. This corporation issued this monopoly money in exchange for a deal with the U.S. government after the U.S. government declared bankruptcy in 1933. See, what happened in 1933 is FDR, a.k.a. Roosevelt, a.k.a. one of the greatest traders to ever live. Well, see, FDR, after the U.S. declared bankruptcy, see, he made a deal with the Federal Reserve. They would continue on issuing their Federal Reserve notes to all Americans and keep the economy afloat with their phony Federal Reserve notes. And in exchange for this, the entire resource base of the nation was pledged to pay off this bankruptcy. So, instead of going bankrupt, we began to be issued these phony Federal Reserve notes to save our economy. And as a result from this, we get poorer and poorer daily, and everything gets worse and worse as we keep on going through time.
Look at the dollar bill. On that dollar bill down at the bottom it says $1, and that is a lie. It cannot be $1 if it does not conform to the Constitution's version of what a dollar is. And the Constitution says to coin money and regulate the value thereof. It's in Article 1, Section 8, Paragraph 5. And in Article 1, Section 10, Paragraph 1, no state shall make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts. So it cannot be $1, and I'll tell you why it cannot be $1. It cannot be $1 because it is fiat money. Fiat money is counterfeit money. It means it cannot be exchanged for gold or silver coin. In fact, it cannot be exchanged for anything, and it is worth only what some fool is willing to give you for it. The other lie on that piece of paper called a Federal Reserve note is just that, the term Federal Reserve note. A note, as defined by the dictionary, is something that records that someone else owes something to somebody. And a note can be called and exchanged for whatever collateral is presented against the note. For instance, if you borrow money on your house and you cannot pay the money back, they can come with the note and take the house. I think you all understand that. The house is worth something. But if they came with a note and you just gave them another note, boy, you'd be laughing, wouldn't you? You got a house, they got nothing but 2 notes. And if they come with those 2 notes and give them to you and you give them 2 other notes, what have they got? That's exactly what is happening with this phony fiat, counterfeit, treasonous paper called a Federal Reserve note.
Now that we're getting somewhere, you know we got to give back. For the youth is the future, no doubt that's right and exact. Squeeze the juice out of all the suckers with power and pour some back out, so as to water the flowers. This world is ours. That's why the demons are leery. It's our inheritance. This is my Robin Hood theory.
Now, if you think that this seems crazy, I understand that completely, but I can assure you that everything I have said here is 100% legally binding. And it doesn't seem legally binding now, but after the economy crashes, which will be soon, that's when you'll be trading your property to the government in exchange for food. See, they've already owned your property. Well, it won't be to the government. It will be to the issuers of the Federal Reserve notes that basically own the government. Because how can you not? If you own the central bank, you own the government. You can find any dictator in history that will tell you that. So what's going to happen is the economy is going to crash and you're going to be really, really, really hungry. And the government's going to say, well, see, we already own your property technically, so you should just give it to us so we feed you. So you'll maybe say, no, I won't. But then you're just going to keep getting hungrier and hungrier. And then you're going to find out every other person around you is giving up their property in exchange for something to eat. So what you're going to end up finding out is that your property is going to be worthless and you will have no reason whatsoever to hold your claim to your property. And because you have never owned your property, it will be ceded over to the true owner, which will be those who run the Federal Reserve banks of the world. See, you might think you own your home, but your home was priced in Federal Reserve notes. See, that $500,000 home you think you own, that's only 500,000 Federal Reserve notes. See, those are going to crash and become worthless. It's literally inevitable. If you know anything at all about the system that has been propped up beyond what I'm teaching here, well, you will know that the system was designed to crash after roughly 100 years. So if we do some quick math here, what is 1,913 plus 100? Well, see, that would be 2013. Oh, that seems to line up pretty close to the date of the time we're living through. Well, let's see here. The worst economic crashes in the history of the world. Oh, so this right here is exactly how the New World Order will happen. The Federal Reserve note will crash to zero. You will give up all your property in exchange for being fed. And the New World Order, aka those who control the Federal Reserve System, will own everything in the world, and with it, every country on earth. Because every country on earth uses the same phony federal fiat currency that we use. The entire world has been ensnared into one giant Ponzi scheme based upon the Federal Reserve note. We could go on for hours about what this really means behind the scenes, but I'll leave some things in the comments for you to study on your own.
And this is what is destroying our country, folks. It is not money, it is worthless. In fact, that bill that you're holding in your hand is worth less than a blank sheet of paper because it's all covered with ink and you can't even use it to write on. You see, the only thing that gives that Federal Reserve note any value whatsoever is the number of fools who are willing to accept it. At one time in this country, we had gold certificates and silver certificates. And you could take any one of those pieces of paper, if it was a gold certificate and it was a $500 gold certificate, you could exchange it for $500 in gold coin at any bank. Any bank. If it was a silver certificate and it was a $1 note, you could take it and exchange it for $1 in silver coin at any bank.
So there's a lot of people of all races and all creeds and all belief systems that believe that they have no responsibility for global slavery. Well, see, that's not the case. Because if you accept these phony federal worthless fiat debt notes known as Federal Reserve notes, if you accept these, well, see, if you're an American and you accept these, well, you're basically forcing through the military might the rest of the world to accept these phony federal worthless fiat Federal Reserve notes. Well, non-federal I meant. But see, if the rest of the world has to accept these, well, they're enslaved the same as we are. And they don't own anything the same as we are. Well, see, so that would lead to you as Americans being the leading cause of global slavery. So it doesn't fucking matter what color your skin is. You are the reason that global enslavement exists. If you are an American and you are not working to bring down the phony, non-federal Federal Reserve System.
Our money was the most valuable, most coveted, most sought after money in the world because it had value, substance, worth. All wealth stems from the land, folks. Everything else that is not of the land will ultimately decay and disappear into thin air or into dust or into air and dust or in a puff of smoke if it burns. Money must be backed by the wealth that comes from the land. If it is not, it is worthless. Worthless. Has no value whatsoever.
God is universal, He is the ruler universal. For those who can't follow, that spells guru. And in my circle, I see all sides of my culture. Design my thoughts like a sculpture. And chumps, they wanna get with me, cause I'm another entity. I'm sent to be leading the army of the century. Mention me, and snakes will retreat eventually, due to my Robin Hood theory.
Well, Bill says he doesn't understand how this happened to the American people, but I understand how it happened, and actually he does too, because he gave me the information on the education system that allowed for Americans to become so dumbed down that they don't even question the word note being found on their quote-unquote money. Well, see, I mean, I understand how we got dumbed down. I do. It's the education system, which, it just so happens to be controlled by the same United Nations that controls the International Monetary Fund. Who would have thunk that? I'd have never guessed that.
Now, I cannot understand how the American people allowed our money to be debased, to be taken away from us, to be counterfeited. And that's what a Federal Reserve note is. It's a counterfeit dollar because it does not conform to the definition of what our money is in the Constitution, and thus is illegal. How did they get away with this? The Federal Reserve Bank was established in 1914 after a meeting in 1913 on an island called Jekyll Island by some of the wealthiest bankers in this nation, representing, I might add, European banking interests. And they conned the Congress of the United States into forming a central bank. Not a central bank owned and operated by the United States government, folks, but a privately owned corporation called the Federal Reserve as the central bank of the United States of America. The Federal Reserve Act exempted this private corporation from paying income taxes and made it against the law to audit them. They have never, ever been audited, and I'm going to tell you why. Because, folks, if they were to be audited, you would find out that this country has literally been stolen from us. Because here's how the...
So, I mean, when I hear the word treason, I pretty much go apeshit. I'm not even going to lie. I go absolutely apeshit because there are so many verifiable examples of treason that I could come up with where nobody has ever said a single word about it in any point in history. And then at the same time, you take treason like the Federal Reserve System. See, the phony Federal Reserve System is probably the greatest form of treason ever put over on the world. It enslaves the entire world. And somehow you actually call me crazy for pointing out the fact that you're enslaved by the system. You call me crazy for that, but then you say some guy peeing on a hooker or something is some kind of treason. Every president before the guy that peed on Hooker, even if he peed on Hooker, even if he did it, every president before him has never said a word to you or worked to stop. Oh, wait, I forgot. One of them might have been working to stop the Federal Reserve System. They put about 3 bullets through his head in a triangulation of fire and took him out. So, I don't know, we'll see. Ye blind guides, which will strain at a gnat and swallow a camel.
Now, I cannot understand how the American people allowed our money to be debased, to be taken away from us, to be counterfeited. And that's what a Federal Reserve note is. It's a counterfeit dollar because it does not conform to the definition of what our money is in the Constitution, and thus is illegal. How did they get away with this? The Federal Reserve Bank was established in 1914 after a meeting in 1913 on an island called Jekyll Island by some of the wealthiest bankers in this nation, representing, I might add, European banking interests. And they conned the Congress of the United States into forming a central bank. Not a central bank owned and operated by the United States government, folks, but a privately owned corporation called the Federal Reserve as the central bank of the United States of America. The Federal Reserve Act exempted this private corporation from paying income taxes and made it against the law to audit them. They have never, ever been audited, and I'm going to tell you why. Because, folks, if they were to be audited, you would find out that this country has literally been stolen from us.
So to fully understand what I'm about to say, you will have to understand the history of the U.S. petrodollar. But there is a huge swath of people my age, basically every person who is under 35 and under, has this huge problem with the gigantic military budget. Well, see, the gigantic military budget is only in existence to prop up the U.S. petrodollar run through the Federal Reserve System. See, there would be no gigantic U.S. military that spans every corner of the globe if the U.S. military wasn't needed to prop up this phony, worthless piece of shit, non-dollar, non-Federal Reserve note that we somehow believe to be money. See, the reason the U.S. military exists is to shove this worthless money down everybody's throat with a bunch of fucking guns. So, if you think you're against the U.S. military, and you're some millennial superhero, and you think we're going to eliminate the U.S. military budget and give that money to free college and a bunch of worthless other crap, you're out of your mind. As long as you allow this garbage right here to exist, the U.S. military is going to be the biggest waste hog on the planet that you have ever seen, the greatest murderers to ever live, everything. As long as you allow this to exist, the U.S. military will have a $1 trillion a year budget. If you don't like me saying that, you're a coward, and you're going to pay for it, so just wait.
Because here's how the Federal Reserve Bank operates. They have two ways of stealing money from the American people. Actually, three. Three ways. The first is that if the United States needs money, let's say, they print up 1,000 $1 bills. The Federal Reserve then agrees to loan the United States $1,000. They buy those 1,000 $1 bills from the United States Treasury, where it was printed, for just a little over $20. That's the printing costs, and there's no profit built into that. And then they turn around and loan those dollars to the United States of America. You see, the money never existed. They don't open a bank vault and take out $1,000 and loan it to the United States of America. No, sir. They make a bookkeeping entry. They create this money out of thin air. It never existed before in the history of the world. They then pay the United States Treasury a little over $20 per each $1,000 in $1 bills that is printed, or they just issue the money to the United States as a loan in the form of credit without printing any money. They then loan this money to the United States of America in the form of Federal Reserve notes. And then, to guarantee that the United States will pay them back, the United States gives them a $1,000 Treasury bond, which pays interest to the Federal Reserve bankers. Now, I don't know about you, but I call this theft. You see, what they have done, folks, is just pocketed approximately $980 that they never had before. Plus, they're going to pocket the interest that they're going to earn on that $1,000 Treasury bond above and beyond the $1,000 that we have to pay them back. So they have literally stolen from the people of the United States of America approximately $980 plus the interest from the Treasury bond. The United States Treasury, in return, has received just a little over $20 for the printing of those 1,000 $1 bills, and that includes no profit. This is highway robbery. This is despicable. This is what has happened to this country. I'm going to explain a few things to you now, folks, that you probably never knew.
try to entrap with shadows I creep, cause I know exactly the knowledge you keep.
I mean, after you're learning everything here tonight, like, can you imagine working in the banking industry? Like, dude, no wonder these fucking banks are sponsoring every concert in the city for the last 50 years. Like, they're making money hand over fist. They're making money literally. They have money trees. Like, every bank in the world has a money tree to print money. So no wonder they're sponsoring every concert. I was gonna say I thought it's funny that every bank in the world sponsors everything, but like, they're just wiping their asses with monopoly money, so they're not even sponsoring the stuff. It's not even funny. It's just ignorance and apathy on the people that allow this garbage, like using a worthless rag note, like this literal rag, can't even use it for anything except for giving all your shit to the people who control this bank. They're laughing at you to the very end. Like, you ever seen those dudes from BMO Harris down at... this is just from my city. At BMO Harris, they run the motherfucker here. So, you ever seen those dudes down at Summerfest? They walk around like they own the place. Well, you know what? Because they do.
That's the first way that they steal money from the people of the United States of America. The second way that they steal it is through the repayment of the loan with the interest that was never created. You see, if the interest was never created, it has to come from somewhere. Where does it come from? From the sweat and the tears and the labor and the resources of the American people. It comes out of your substance. It's the same as if I had $1 and I loan 10 cents to 10 people, each at 10% simple interest over 1 year's period, which means they must pay me back each 11 cents. But you see, in this little world that I've created here, there's only $1. That's all that exists. And I have loaned that $1 out to these 10 people who had no money before. Now, each one has 10 cents. Yet each one of them have to pay me back 11 cents. Now that equals $1.10, folks. How are they going to pay me back 11 cents each if all that exists in this whole world is $1? One of them has to go down the tubes in order to furnish the interest for the others to pay. That's how it works, folks. One of them has to go down the tubes in order for the others to pay back their money with interest. Either that, or I create out of thin air some more money so that the one who isn't doing so well can borrow more money from me. That puts more money out there. And the byproduct of that transaction is inflation, and everybody gets just a little bit poorer.
There was a great man who once said, "Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's." Well, in this case, we don't have to listen to that one, because the IRS is a private corporation. They are not Caesar. They do not have any lawful reason to exist. Therefore, they do not need to exist. All we have to do is escape our slave chains and overthrow them. We don't have to render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, because in this case, the quote-unquote Caesar is not a Caesar. They are a fraudulent power who only needs to be overthrown by the will of the people. And the will of the people must be swayed by somebody who is able to teach them the nature of the fraud that has been put over on them. So that might be me. Hopefully it's me. I don't really care. As long as it happens, that's all I care about.
But it requires that somebody always owes somebody else money, and it requires that the debt always escalate in order that the theft of the money not be found out, that the people don't find out that I'm creating this money that I'm loaning them out of thin air. Now, also there has to be a measure. There has to be a measure to remove some of this money from circulation constantly, because the constant creation of money that never existed before and putting it into circulation will create rampant, unbelievable inflation. if there is not some way, some measure to ensure that some of that money is taken out of circulation. And to do this, I create an organization which is a collection agency to collect the debt that the people owe me. And in real life, this is called the Internal Revenue Service, which is also a private corporation incorporated in the state of Delaware. Didn't know that, did you, folks?
I'm the real WMD. I'm your number one public enemy. I'm the one, the runaway slave. I'm the one who got away. Automatic, rapid fire.
So as I mentioned before, I've basically spent the last decade of my life trying to get this information into the ears of every person I've ever met. And I've done a pretty good job at that because me, along with everybody else, working to work this fight and end this system of slavery that's been put over on humanity, well, we're making pretty good inroads in this fight, and we're waking people up by the day. So we're just going to keep going and going with that and not stop. But even to this day, I still see the fear. I can see the weakness of a man right through his iris. Well, see, I can see the fear in your eyes when I tell you something like, you don't have to have a Social Security number to work. And you don't have to pay federal income tax because both of those things are voluntary in nature. You only have to volunteer to pay the federal income tax, and you do. You only have to volunteer to have a Social Security number and pay into Social Security, and you do. And you do it out of fear, and I see the fear in your eyes every time I try to tell you about this. Well, I'm going to leave some resources in the comments for you to research this on your own. And prove to yourself that you don't need to have these slave numbers.
Go get your checks that you used to pay your taxes with. The check that you wrote. If you didn't owe any taxes, you didn't write a check, so you can't do this. But if you owed some taxes and you wrote a check and you paid your taxes with this check, go get that check out of your records, look on the back of it, and you'll see that the check that you thought that went to the United States Treasury did not. On the back, there's a rubber stamp that says, pay any FRB. That means Federal Reserve Bank. And then it says, in payment of OBLIG, in payment of US OBLIG. That means in payment of the United States obligation. Obligation to who? To the Federal Reserve. You see, what's happening is the Internal Revenue Service is not depositing your taxes that you pay, that you think you're paying, into the United States Treasury. It is going directly to the Federal Reserve Bank and then out of this country to prevent the American people from realizing that money is being created out of thin air and that our wealth, our natural resources, our nation, our substance, our people, our property is being stolen from us because, folks, you're going to hear it here for the first time if you've never heard it before in your life. The national debt can never be repaid. Never. And all of this is why I laughed so hard when George Bush made the suggestion that we put a box on our income tax forms that we could check if we wanted a portion of our taxes to go to pay off the national debt. What a joke. And so many people swallowed it hook, line, and sinker.
I live sweat for the dream light years. I am the tide, the rise and the fall.
So as Bill is about to teach you, well, every single dollar, quote-unquote dollar, in existence on planet Earth came into existence as the result of a single $100 loan. But in that case, that loan was made with actual, real, and lawful money. So in that case, that loan was a legitimate loan, and it was, it wasn't lawfully used to create the system, but it allowed it to become something that was put into fruition. Without that loan, none of you would have ever used any of this bullshit, worthless fiat, nonsense, fake money that you've ever touched in your entire life. That single loan that you're about to learn about is the result of every single one of these worthless pieces of garbage in existence.
None of the interest was ever created. And the only real amount of money that the Federal Reserve ever loaned the United States was $100 at the inception of the Federal Reserve. The interest on that debt alone is over $27,000 over the years. The rest of the money that we have borrowed from the Federal Reserve never, ever existed. And that's why it was written in the law and insisted upon that the Federal Reserve would not have to pay income tax and would never be subject to audit. Congress gave away the nation. They were traitors. The Congress that passed the Federal Reserve Act were traitors, for they ensured the destruction of this nation and the enslavement of its people by passing that act. For they knew that this money would be created out of thin air, and they also knew that if the United States established its own bank, we could create United States notes backed by the good faith and credit of the United States of America, which would not be interest-bearing. But they didn't do that. No, they created a central bank owned by private people, a private corporation, that has been stealing this country ever since. You see, shortly after that happened, in about 1938, the United States declared bankruptcy once already.
The one in the many, the flame child.
So if you've lived through recent history, you have seen the mass exodus of corporations out of America. Anybody with any skin in the game in American business is getting the hell out and taking the payments, quote unquote, of fake money when they can get out. The only people left in this nation in terms of business are those who can't lose because they are part of the inner circle of the Federal Reserve System. We now know them to be firms like Vanguard and BlackRock. Every single corporation on the Fortune 100 and the Fortune 500 is part of the inner circle of the Federal Reserve System, and they cannot lose from a business perspective. So that is why they are still here, perched on every corner, serving you your fast food and selling you all your mass-produced goods. Because there is still a little bit to take off of you, but all the rest that have skin to lose, they're all gone. There's only the big giant fish left to play in the pond.
When they declared that bankruptcy, in order to become solvent again, they pledged against the loan the entire resources of the United States of America, which includes all property, all natural resources, and the only thing in the world that has the ability to create wealth, its people. So the next bankruptcy will accomplish the following, folks. All property in the United States will be seized as collateral for the debt of the United States, including all natural resources, all real property, real estate, all consumable goods, which are stereos, TVs, food, anything, everything. The corporations know this, and that's why they're all leaving the country. And the people of the United States, the citizens, will become indentured to the international bankers for however long it takes to repay the loan. Well, put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Reality soldier. The laugh child.
about to hear the reason that they go apeshit over you taking your own money out of their bank. This also explains why it's essentially seen to be criminal to have large amounts of cash. See, large amounts of cash do not exist in the economy because the banks know damn well that it can't exist due to the leveraging of all the debt that they're putting over and then telling everybody it's real capital. So when you try to access large amounts of cash, you find that it doesn't exist, and that's why they can't lend it, or that's why they can't give it out to you. Because the cash doesn't exist, because if it did, the fake fiat phony economy that we use wouldn't be able to work. It has to be fronted to us on credit or it can't work.
The Federal Reserve Bank allows fractional reserve lending. What this means is they can lend out as much as 10 to 1 or more based upon funds held in reserve. So a Federal Reserve Bank could, if they wanted to, and they do want to, and they do it frequently and have done it often, and it has resulted in a terrible thing. Say a Federal Reserve Bank has $1,000 on account in reserve. Now remember, this is not even real money. It's the fiat Federal Reserve notes to begin with, counterfeit. This bank can now loan out $10,000 as a bookkeeping entry, which it doesn't even have, and it's issued in the form of credit against the Federal Reserve Bank. Now, let's say they want to raise their assets in reserve so that they can loan out more money. They merely require the person that they loan this money to keep that money on deposit in their bank. So if they loan him $10,000, only $1,000 really exists now, and that's the fiat Federal Reserve notes, the counterfeit money. They require him to redeposit or deposit this $10,000 in their bank. So he does this. They now have, as a bookkeeping entry, $11,000 as assets deposited in that bank. They can now loan out $110,000 against that $11,000 in assets. And again, if they want to be able to have more on reserve to loan out, all they have to do is require that whoever laid the loan the $110,000 to redeposit it in the same bank. And now folks, they can loan out $1,100,000 based upon an original reserve of $1,000. And this has been compounded so much over the entire Federal Reserve System that I'm going to tell you right now, there is no money in the banks. Our banks are insolvent.
I've got nothing to lose, the whole world against me. Out of your news, now I'm running your game. I beat the hive, I upset the swarm. Category 5, I'm the center of the storm.
So Bill's about to share how we could actually get rid of the Federal Reserve System through the nationalization of the Federal Reserve System. And, well, see, I'm one of the only people that has their ear to the concrete on this, so I'm going to tell you this, and I don't care what you think of it, but don't let what I'm about to say be a judgment of any of the rest of this information here, because I very well could be wrong about this completely, but there actually is a chance that Donald Trump already nationalized the Federal Reserve System. And all of the inflation that we're going through right now, well, it's basically because Donald Trump is a master manipulator of bankruptcies. He knows how to handle them without the economy crashing. So like I said before, when I said the economy has to crash, well, see, there's actually a chance that Donald Trump already nationalized the Federal Reserve and prevented the crash of the entire economy of the world. That will only be known by history, so do not judge me on my statement on that. I want to put that out there because I know it to be a possibility. Whether you believe it or not to be a possibility does not matter, because it absolutely is a possibility.
The entire savings and loan system has crumbled. Now, you think your deposits are safe because of the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, FDIC? And you think your deposits are safe because of the FDSLI? Well, they're not, folks. And those are not agencies of the United States government either. You've all been fooled. You think because it says federal that it's an arm of the government and it's backed by the government and you can't lose your money? You're wrong. You not only can, but you will lose your money. You're going to. It doesn't matter what you do. And if all that you can think of is saving your assets, I can guarantee you you're going to lose your ass. And I don't mean the four-legged one out in the barnyard, folks. The only way to save your assets is to save the Constitution, is to force the traitors who are sitting in Congress to audit the Federal Reserve. And the only answer to this entire problem, I can guarantee you, is to nationalize the Federal Reserve, declare all of those who have had a hand in the ownership or the creation of the Federal Reserve to be criminals, arrest them, seize all of their assets, and issue United States notes, non-interest notes, while we build up our reserves of gold and silver so that we can once again mint constitutional money. If we are not willing to do this, if we will not do it, then we are doomed. And there is no way out other than what I have just told you. And I'm the only one in this country who's got the guts to tell it to you, because anyone else who's ever tried has been murdered. Murdered by these creeps. And they all belong to secret societies. It is not a Jewish plot. It is not a Catholic plot. It is not a plot by the blacks or the Poles or the Protestants or anyone else. These men belong to secret societies. And this problem is as old as man.
I seek son, deceive none. For each one must teach one. At least one must flow and show the structure of freedom. It's me done, cause petty things, we don't need them. Let's focus to create something great for all that sees them. They innocent. They know not what they face, while politicians say face genius minds lay to waste.
If not, and he didn't do what I think he did, well, what Bill's about to talk about is what's coming to the world. It cannot be avoided. It is inevitable. The only way the future is going to be anything worth having is going to be if the country readapts lawful money and learns and takes this information that I'm sharing here to heart. You don't have to learn it this exact way. There's a lot of ways to learn about the fraud of the Federal Reserve System. Bill did a really good job, so I'm sharing his presentation with you in hopes that it will educate you. But we all must learn about this system, and we all must teach everybody in subsequent generations about this fraud to ensure that it can never happen again.
Freemasonry was infiltrated and taken over by the Knights Templars as they fled the persecution of the Pope and the kings of Europe. The international bankers today are the Knights Templars, folks. And the arm through which they operate is Freemasonry, the Rosicrucians, the Ancient Order of the Rose and Cross, and many other organizations which appear to be outwardly fraternal organizations existing for the good of the community, but I can assure you they are not. This country is being destroyed from within by those who belong to these secret societies. And if you doubt this, folks, if you doubt this, if you don't understand what I'm telling you, and if you're not willing to go look to find out if it's true, if you're not willing to study, the destruction of this country and the enslavement of its people are a certainty, and it is now imminent. Imminent.
I'm maintaining. I just been thinking though, man, about the situation for today's youth, man, the seeds, man. What's your opinion on that?
That's strange. I was thinking the same thing. Son, I read in the Holy Quran how it says, "Hast thou seen him who belies religion? That is one who is rough to the orphan." And no matter what we say our religion is, whether it's Islam, Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, old schoolism, or new schoolism, if we're not schooling the youth with wisdom, then the sins of the father will visit the children. And that's not keeping it real, that's keeping it wrong.
Well, I'm pretty much alone in this fight because I'm like one of the only people that actually knows all of the implications of the knowledge that I'm sharing in this video here tonight. So like, I'm going down with the ship fighting, and I have been going down with the ship fighting this worthless garbage nonsense fiat phony toilet paper money, fake money. I always mistakenly call it money. It's not money. I'm going down with the ship fighting this system because if you do not do this, you are wasting your time in any attempts you have to accumulate wealth. Anybody who makes a decent salary and puts their salary towards their life savings and their retirement funds so they could retire in peace someday, well, see, you've all put your retirements into the Federal Reserve Note system. So every retirement you have is based upon this Federal Reserve Note here, and it's about to collapse soon. So pretty much what's going to happen is this thing's going to collapse, and you're going to have to decide, am I really that attached to this fake, phony nonsense that I believe to be my earthly possessions? Or am I going to let it all, or am I going to set it all on fire and let it all burn?
We not gonna stress. Put me to the test. I strike a match and make the whole place burn.
And restart and not take the government's fake attempts to give me a lifeline after they crash this system. So for all you people out there who want to know what I've been doing with my time, well, see, what I've been doing with my time is finding any possible way I can to not set my wealth on fire that I've earned by putting it into the Federal Reserve System through various investments. And however you do that, you're doing it in the Federal Reserve System, and there's no point to it. The very fact that you've put your actual retirement savings into a system of finance that is literally guaranteed to lose value day in and day out for the entirety of the existence of the currency that you put it into, well, you're wasting your time and you're going to be poor just like your boomer parents are poor now, taking out reverse mortgages on their house and all kinds of other crazy stuff. So, like, I don't know, if you guys don't fight the system and you don't just let the whole thing burn to the ground and...
Before you call the shot, but now it's our turn. Blow up the system and the tables have a turn. You'll hear the knowledge you thought I never learned. I strike a match and make the whole place burn.
And realize that the $390,000 price sticker that's slapped on your home is completely fucking meaningless because these aren't dollars. $390,000 of worthless toilet paper money notes is nothing. So when your home price crashes down on you and all your earthly possessions that you thought you had secured end up being worthless and give you nothing, well, you're going to have a choice. You're either going to take the slavery that you're going to be offered in exchange for staying within this system, or you're going to get out of this system and you're going to finally experience true wealth and true freedom for the first time in your life. So we'll see where it goes.
You'd better wake up, folks. We are in real trouble now. The only answer is to audit the Federal Reserve, nationalize the Federal Reserve, prosecute all who were connected with its formation and with its ownership as criminals, traitors. If any people or any nation objects or resists, we must back this up with the full force of our military might. And believe me, if we can do this, every nation in this world will thank us for taking us out from under the yoke of these secret societies. And only then will our economy improve. Only then will we be able to eliminate the debt by decree, because it is based upon fraud, upon theft, and begin again. If we do not do this, I'm going to say this once again, we are doomed There is no way out of this other than what I have just told you. There is no way that anyone in this country can ever pay back the national debt because the interest was never created. And the debt itself was created out of thin air, never existed, is fraud. Fraud. You see, we could have printed that kind of money ourselves and never owed ourselves anything.
So hungry that my teeth keep showing. So run, nigga, run. My feet like Owens. I'm the best kept secret, but the streets keep knowing.
Nothing satisfies me.
So, what kind of nation would have something like a bunch of guards guarding gold in a bank that doesn't have any gold anymore, but they have security guards of the highest orders protecting this gold that isn't there anymore? So, the question is, what kind of nation would have such a thing? Well, I believe a nation that would have such a thing would be one that would have, all 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto installed in that nation by law. Oh, yeah, that would seem to be the type of nation that would have something like, say, a central bank ruling over it, like, say, the Federal Reserve. That's one of the planks of the Communist Manifesto. And see, the types of nations that do things like put phony guards in place of a fake place where they got nothing in there. Well, yeah, that's a communist nation. If you know anything about the topic, I mean, it's just self-explanatory. But the problem is, like, none of you really know about communism, so you don't fucking know what goes on in those places. You don't got a clue.
Now let me acquaint you with another fact. There is very little, if any, gold in Fort Knox. It was all sold as at a discount during the Nixon administration, and only insiders were ever told that the sale would take place. It was sold at a discount from $32 an ounce on the world gold market, when at the time the price of gold was well over $100 an ounce. The American people were never told, never had a chance to buy any of that gold. And the people who bought it at a discount from $32 an ounce made a handsome profit at the expense of the people of this country. What are they guarding at Fort Knox? They're guarding the secret that there's no gold. That's what they're guarding.
I floss my rhymes like dentals. My mental's presidential. From the wild ghetto districts to the plush residential. Essential will be the message that I send you. I'm meant to elevate at every venue.
To illustrate how little I give a fuck about this worthless fucking horse shit that you call money, toilet paper money, wipe your ass with it and fucking just throw it in the fire because it's worthless. Well, it's soon to be worthless anyway. But, well, here's the thing about this worthless shit. If you were smart, you would already have a mansion in a certain place, and you'd have many rooms in that mansion of that certain place. But, see, you're all obsessed with this love for money. So, you fall for many roots of evil. And because of this, all of you gnash your teeth, and you weep on a regular basis over a bunch of garbage. And the funniest thing about it is the main thing you're all weeping over, well, it's worthless toilet paper money that somebody should wipe their ass with if they had any brains. But see, I'm trapped in a society of people who think this worthless toilet paper money's real. So, I gotta focus on my mansion that's coming to me someday. So, hey, just so you guys know, you can't take me out. There's nothing you could ever do to take me out, because I'm going home to my mansion if it happens, motherfuckers.
Folks, I have taken great risk in bringing you this information tonight, because no other media personality, talk show host, or broadcast station has the guts to tell you what I just told you. And if it actually goes out over the air and stays out over the air, I'll consider myself very lucky. And if I stay alive after you hear this broadcast, I will be even luckier. But the chances are that no action will be taken against me, simply because it will prove that everything that I have said in this broadcast is absolutely 100% correct. I want you to make tapes of this broadcast and send them to everyone that you know. And while you're at it, folks, you better take advantage of our membership offer for CAGI. That's the Citizens Agency for Joint Intelligence. That is the intelligence network that brings you the material that is included in each one of these programs. The Citizens Agency for Joint Intelligence is a group of citizens who wish to save the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, this nation, and thus freedom for the world. For if this country falls, all freedom worldwide will fall with it, and man will cease to exist as a sovereign, free, individual, king in his own right, with a government as his chattel servant, and will once again be relegated to the position of someone else's property.
So hungry that my teeth keep showing. So run, nigga, run. My feet like Owens. I'm the best kept secret, but the streets keep knowing.
Nothing satisfies me.
So being in a place of having lived the 30 years after this recording was originally made, well, see, we actually saw what he's about to talk about here. We literally lived through what he's about to talk about here. But the federal government bailed out the banks and kicked the can down the road and made our money even more worthless than before. It would have been better off if they just crashed the system back then and we have to start over with something new. Because now if they crash it, well, we got to look forward to CBDCs, which are central bank digital currencies, which I will put some links in the comments to videos where you can use to learn about this topic. But see, we're about now to get one last kick of the can after the economy crashes one last time, and the stock market takes one last extra tumble on top of the ones that's already been bailed out of. Well, see, after that one happens, well, that's the end of the line, pal, because you're getting a choice, and that choice is going to be central bank digital currencies, aka digitizing this money and making it even fucking crazier than it already is. So you got a choice. Make this shit even fucking crazier than you could ever imagine it to ever have been, or you can just take the loss on everything you ever bought with this fucking worthless shit, because you're either going to take the loss on everything you ever bought with this worthless shit, or you're going to take the central bank digital currency and you're going to start working for the fucking government. Well, I'm not even going to tell you what you're going to do in your job as the government, but it's a little thing called social credit score. And see, it's going to be tied into the newly formed central bank digital currency that's going to come to you if you do not accept the loss of the entirety of all your wealth that you purchased with this worthless toilet paper money that I'm showing you right here. Anything you bought with a Federal Reserve note, aka anything you did with a bank that's situated in America, well, that's like all you, and that's like everything you've ever done in your life. So anything you've ever done with that, well, you're going to have to say bye-bye to it, or you're going into slavery. So good luck.
Let me read to you again the little news article that we read at the beginning of this show. Former banker and financial analyst Michael William Haga, author of the forthcoming book, On the Brink, How to Survive the Coming Great Depression, 1993 to 2000, says this. Within the next 12 months, the international banking system will collapse. The world's stock exchanges will crash to pre-World War II levels. Real estate values will plunge 85% or more, and countless numbers of ordinary people worldwide will be left holding the bag. The United States will be left in the position of forced bankruptcy. The real property, the resources, the natural resources, and the people who create the resources in the United States of America will simply be foreclosed upon, and we will become indentured to the world banking system, to the New World Order. We will be slaves, folks. This is coming. Anyone with any sense, with any understanding of economics, with finances, with the kind of situation that we are really in, and not what George Herbert Walker Bush or his ilk tell you. If you understand all of these things, you know this is coming. You know it. And don't let yourself be fooled by this insane assertion that we're in the midst of a recovery, because that is a lie. And there's only one way to save ourselves, and that's the way that I have outlined during this program tonight. There is no other way.
belly of the beast. Niggas can't eat like a tapeworm. Looking for the password and there ain't one. You either 5'4" or you 8'1". Looking for a better motherfucker and there ain't one.
Well, for me, I feel no fear when facing y'all. But, see, for you guys got a lot of fear. You really shouldn't have any fear. One thing you should actually fear in life is this shit right here. You should be terrified of this fucking worthless fucking shit. You should fucking... I mean, if you got anything at all to be afraid of, it's that fucking worthless garbage that I just fucking threw on the ground. Because it's fucking worthless, and it represents the destruction of all of your labor. So every single person who values their labor and values being rewarded for their labor and keeping the fruits of their labor, well, you're probably going to want to act on everything you just learned here. Because if you don't, well, you know what's coming now.
The last breed of my dying era. Can't be comfortable with your parents if you was living in my house of mirrors. And it's a war, pick your shield up and don't divide. Whoever jump ship when it cracks, same niggas we floating by. The story can't conclude. There's no way to obtain an explanation for a future that's unexplainable. Seen this all happen, we all living in deja vu. Retrace my vision so the words can illustrate to you. Saint Pierre
From the belly of the beast.
Now, folks, I want you all to realize that we're not trying to scare you by bringing you this information. We have looked at this in every way possible, and this is the only answer that we can find. We've been living in fantasy land. Now, if you can come up with better answers or a better solution, please write to me and let me know. And if it checks out, we'll put it on the air. But this is the way we see it right now. And this is the way our intelligence organization, CAGI, also sees it. It doesn't look good. But we can save ourselves and we can save this country if we wake up now and do something about it. We must nationalize the Federal Reserve. We must prosecute all those connected with the Federal Reserve and the Internal Revenue Service as criminals. We must confiscate all of their property and all of their wealth and give it to the Treasury of the United States. We must print United States notes while we build up our reserves of gold and silver so once again we can mint constitutional money. Now this is one time, folks, that I can tell you sincerely that I hope that I am wrong. I hope that our intelligence network that has given this information is wrong. But it doesn't look that way. And we can't hide from this either, folks. As George Bush would say, read my lips, New World Order. Good night, and God bless each and every one of you.
Positive talk, we don't hate none, but the women lovers and they baby fathers hate sons. Gassed up, nigga.